So welcome, mothers and others. I'm so excited to bring to you a new candidate who's running for Congress, U.S. Congress. This is JanMcDowell, and she is running for Texas Congressional District 24. So welcome, Jan. We're so glad you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about you and why you are running for office?
Okay, sure. First of all, I'm actually not a new candidate. I've run a few times before for Congressional District 24. I started out in the very beginning. I was motivated and inspired by a documentary called Inside Job, which was about how the government responded or actually didn't respond to all of the stuff that led us to the financial meltdown in 2008 and 2009. So when I saw that movie, I was with a group of friends, and we were also angry about it because there wasn't anything happening, because the people in the government who should have been regulating stuff didn't, because everybody's making money. It was great. And so we were also angry at the end. And one of the people in our group said, well, nothing's going to change unless different people run for office and different people get elected and do things differently. So it was like then, I think 2011, that I thought, well, one of these days I'm going to run for Congress. And eventually, it was late 2015, I decided to get involved. I ran in 2016 because it looked like it was shaping up to be the year of the woman with Hillary Clinton in the race. And then I stuck with it, built name recognition over time, and little by little, or in big chunks there in the beginning, we were whittling away that incredible gap there was that Republicans were just hopeless in District 24 for so long. And we got ever so close, so they redrew the district to make it less close now. But we are still chipping away and determined that it's just that important to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad then that you stayed with it and that you continue to run again. So that's great. So since this isn't your first time, what kind of progress do you think you've made then? So from the first time to now, have you all been chipping away at the Republican leads in your district?
Oh yeah. I give like a short history starting back from 2014, when a man stepped up to run in this district. And he said that he didn't have time to really run a campaign, that he didn't want the man who was then the incumbent, Kenny Marchant, to just be unopposed. So he got his name on the ballot. He lost by 32 points. So that's how red the district was. That was 2014. I got in 2016, worked really hard with very, very little budget, and lost pretty badly, but it was by 17 points. So I'd cut that gap just about in half the first time. 2018, everybody in our area was focused on the District 32 right next door to us, where Colin Allred ended up beating Pete Sessions. So nobody was paying any attention to us because it was a 17-point Republican advantage district. I lost by 3 points that time. So I came really close, and everybody was, kind of, holy smokes, how did that happen? And, I've always thought that we could have, should have won 2 seats that time if a little bit of the attention and money and media had gone to District 24 as well. So I stuck with it in 2020. Since it was so close then, there was the floodgates opened. There were 7 names on the Democratic primary ballot. And I ended up coming in third. I was not the flashy, new, exciting, new person. It was just, oh, it's Jan again. So I came in third. We didn't end up winning it, but got very close. And then they redrew the district to try to make it safer for Beth this time around.
Yeah, definitely. So the person that is currently in that seat in your area is Beth Van Dyne.
Right.
And she is one of the most abhorrent people on the planet.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah, no argument.
Sorry. Yeah, I just she's just a detestable human being. But anyway, um, and right now you have a district that is definitely purple, I think, if not hopefully turning blue. Tarrant County is rumored to be the hotbed of where all the things are happening this next round. Greg Abbott thinks he's losing Tarrant County. I mean, it's pretty serious right now
Yeah.
that the suburban women where you in the area where you live are a little bit ticked off. So that is one of those things that is pretty evident. So let's talk a little bit about why they are ticked off. Well, there's ticked off for many reasons, but primarily, the Dobbs decision
Absolutely.
and SB8. So let's start there because I think that'll give us let's just start there. It gives us something to talk about. Women's right to choose and how it has impacted your congressional districts. So what are your
Yeah.
positions? How has it impacted your district? And where do we see it going? And what are you hearing on the ground about the Dobbs decision from not just Democrats, but also Republicans?
Yeah. I go back to what President Biden has said that, you piss off a bunch of American women and you ain't seen nothing yet. And we saw it in Kansas, we saw it in Alaska, races that you would expect to go Republican, and now suddenly they're going Democratic. I feel very energized. I feel like the winds and the tides have changed ever since Roe v. Wade got overturned. So I think it's made all the difference in the world. There is just, Republicans are great at having these pithy messages, in this case, pro-life. And they've said pro-life, which is a 2-word thing that you can put on a bumper sticker and whatever. You raise a bunch of money, you win a bunch of races for decades. And then suddenly they're in a position where they can make that happen. And the people all around the country are going, well, wait a minute, that's not what we thought this was about. We want there to be exceptions for rape and incest in the life of the mother and all of those things. And suddenly they've been sold a bill of goods for 50 years as Republicans, promise and jump up and down and use their bullhorns to say pro-life. And then what turns out isn't what people wanted at all. And it makes me think of when it was always, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And they raised a ton of money on that, won a ton of elections. And when they were in a position to do it, number one, they didn't have anything planned out to replace it with. And number two, people were saying, well, wait a minute, that's my health insurance. I don't want you to take that away. And it's like, again, that pithy message didn't really tell the whole story, and the people who supported it all that time didn't like what they got. You're on mute now.
Yeah, I still remember when they were trying to pass, they were just saying like, oh, we're going to pass something better than Obamacare. Well, we had 4 years of Trump. A few of those years, he had control of the Senate and the House,
Yep.
and they didn't pass anything because they have no plan.
Yeah, it was always repeal and replace, but they didn't have a replacement.
Yeah, they had nothing. They had no plan. So it was super duper frustrating. So if you would be elected into office, would you be supportive and help codify Roe v. Wade?
Yes, absolutely. I think that the bottom line, Roe v. Wade is less about abortion than it is about choice. And I think women need to be trusted to make choices about their own body. They can consult their doctor, which is who I would guess they would talk to. They might want to talk to family or, clergy or whoever else they feel like talking to, but their government doesn't have any role in that process.
Yeah. So if you were elected into office, where are your interests as far as like the legislative, like whole body goes? What would you like to be a part of in DC where you feel like your background can really benefit a certain committee or a certain group? So where would you like to participate the most?
Well, like I said, my initial motivation, inspiration was about our economy and trying to make it work for everybody, give everybody a level playing field. I'm a retired CPA, so I do come at things with a financial perspective. And, I understand that having attorneys is important in a legislature because they're making laws, but we have a bunch of attorneys and we have very few CPAs that are following the money and taking that kind of perspective and watching the budget. So I'd love to be like on the Ways and Means or appropriations and that kind of thing. I've been talking about that less recently because I think absolutely first thing has to be to solidify our democracy. If that goes away, we're done. Nothing else really matters. And the second thing that's only second because we have a little bit more time on it is our climate change, the environment, preserving our planet for the generations to come. And I think the democracy and the planet are both, equally existential, important, essential issues. And I only put democracy first because we could literally lose that in the next couple months. And I think our planet, we have a little more lead time on that. So, but always in the background, I think that our country would be so much better off if everybody could have a chance to participate, a chance to thrive, a chance to reach their potential, which would be, an advantage for everybody.
Yeah, yes, I agree with that too. So let's talk about climate change. So you just mentioned it. It is really important. It's one of these key issues that isn't just important for all Americans, but it's a key issue for younger Americans. I mean, it's one of their top three issues that they're very concerned about. So, what would you tell those in your district that are younger than, let's say, the age of 40 and younger, that they care about climate change, they see it coming on fast? So, what would some of your positions be on climate change?
Well, I think that as according to the scientists, and I'm not a scientist, but it seems clear to me that we just have to get off of fossil fuels. And that may be painful to some people getting to that point. I know that there are millions of good paying jobs, though, available in the sustainable and renewable energy fields to where, I think that it would be a boom from that standpoint to do the right thing and make that happen. But, when people are making lots and lots and lots of money and have for decades on an industry that's killing people, it's not a very feasible or rational argument in my mind to say, well, we have to go easy on that because all these people, then won't be able to make all this money. And to me, that is way less important than the idea that everybody needs to be able to live. It's like the tobacco industry. They took a hit when they finally had to fess up that, yes, they knew that their product was killing people. It's just, and like the gun industry, there's lots of people making a lot of money on that, and we need to get some common sense gun safety laws going. So I'm all about what's best for the most people.
So you did mention gun safety laws. That's one of these things with like Moms Demand Action. They go to DC. We've been trying to pass some some better, more codified gun safety laws that they could implement all across the country. And we saw a little bit of progress in that area recently, but not much. There's a little bit of progress, and that's the thing with gun safety laws. I mean, it's very slow in coming, for sure. So What are your positions on gun safety? What laws should we be considering passing? Um, do you work closely with? I mean, are you associated with Moms Demand Action at all? And what should we be doing as a country when it comes to gun safety?
I am a Moms Demand Action gun safety candidate. Very proudly, I walked with them in it was the Dallas Pride Parade this summer, and I'm a friend with the Dallas lead of Moms Demand Action, so I've been proud to be one of their recommended candidates for a while. Um, I believe that you don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So, had I been in Congress right now, I would have voted in favor of the bill that passed. And because it did good things. It didn't do anywhere near enough, but I wouldn't vote no and turn my back on it because it's not perfect. We'll take what we can get, come back and try for more. I believe that there needs to be a ban on assault weapons. The idea that one of the big things we keep hearing about is raise the age from 18 to 21. And again, if I'm in Congress and there's a bill that does that, I'll vote yes. But if I'm in a situation where there's a madman with an assault weapon, I'm not going to feel any better at all knowing that the person who's holding that is 21 or over than 18. I mean, those weapons do not belong on our streets at all. I haven't heard of any good reasons that people have for having those outside of a war zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's switch gears a little bit here. Immigration and border and the Texas border. I mean, these are really hot issues. We see some of our congressmen in Texas just always talking about how Biden wants open borders and Betta wants open borders. Of course, we know that no Democrat wants open borders. That's like not a thing. But the messaging around our border policy needs a little bit of work, and we also need to have new thinking around immigration. So it's been a long time since we actually have had ideas and solutions around immigration, and also tying in some of those ideas and solutions to climate change is also very important because I think they go hand in hand. So I wanted to ask you what your positions are on immigration and border policy, and what you think about the latest stunts from Governor Abbott when it comes to the border.
Yeah, I think you summed it up right there. They're stumps. Um, I would say that the first thing to keep in mind when you talk about immigration is that we're talking about people. Somehow it gets all caught up in this scary thing of illegal aliens and invasions and all of this that makes it all sound very scary, but they're people. And I think it's real important to keep that fact in mind. People don't leave their home with a small child to travel thousands of miles across multiple countries unless they're pretty darn desperate. So, I think that there needs to be some recognition of that fact. I'm the vice chairman of the board of a group called Justice for Our Neighbors, the DFW chapter of that group, that provides low cost or no cost legal services to people coming across the border to help them with the paperwork and get work visas and green cards, and eventually, they will work with a client over several years until they, help them get their citizenship through. So it's a very well developed group that does a lot of good work. Part of what I started to envision, and I got on the phone with the man who's the executive director of our JFON branch to ask him, if I was on the right track and thinking the right way, because the border, again, is always painted as being so scary. And I think what's scary is the chaos and the pictures you see of these boots on the ground kind of people patrolling the river and these aliens coming across and all that. I would very much like to see, rather than put all the billions of dollars we seem to be able to come up with from somewhere to build a wall, to build several state-of-the-art processing centers at points of entry that have the technology to do screening efficiently, to vet people, if we find, nobody wants bad guys coming into our country. So if we discover that somebody's a bad guy, they get sent back immediately. Otherwise, they get paperwork done, they get an appointment. If they're seeking asylum, that's something that's legal to do. These people are not illegal. But I would love to see us have some sort of like a national job clearinghouse. There are open positions everywhere. If you go out to eat, you don't get very good service, and the restaurant's saying, well, we're just short-staffed, and everything is short-staffed because they can't find people to hire. So what I envision is this thing that says, okay, well, Paducah, Kentucky let us know that they need 25 people to do this. And, Oxnard, California or somewhere told us that they need 100 people, or we need some migrant workers to do, agricultural work or whatever it is. But, I think that we're smart enough to be able to organize something like that. And a lot of the fear would go away if you saw organization rather than chaos at the border. That's kind of my take on it. I've helped just a couple times when there'll be a busload of people coming in from the border, and they come to Dallas and get processed here. And the most recent time I did it, we were at a church, and helped the people go through stuff and choose clothing and supplies and that they needed, and then it was taking them to a bus station or the airport, because these were people who had sponsors here in the U.S., so it was get them through the security and help them navigate the airport so that they could be on the next leg of their journey. And you said that this ties in with climate change, and that's so true. The more and more desperate climate change becomes, there's going to be vast migration worldwide, people trying to find places that are still habitable.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. All of those things. There's a lot of things to consider. It's like no topic is just an easy answer, especially when so many of them are all related.
Yeah, they all connect together. And I was just going to say, I saw Buddy put in a comment that comprehensive immigration is always an economic benefit. And something else I thought, and I'll just a couple more seconds. I think it was 2013. There was a group called the Gang of Eight. It was in the Senate. It was 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, worked together for quite some time and came up with some sort of a comprehensive immigration plan. And I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the way, politics got in the way, and nothing happened. But it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's talk about the other topic, that is how everything is integrated into each other and one another. So we just got done, well, we're still in it actually. We're going on our 3rd year of COVID. Along with the 3rd year of COVID, we've had a lot of ups and downs with the economy. One of those resulting downs has been inflation. And one of the things that we're really struggling with right now is really just talking about inflation reasonably and trying to get through to people about it, in a reasonable manner, because a lot of times Republicans they just want somebody to blame. So they say, oh, blame the Democrats for this. I'm seeing this a lot in politics, like which is a lot of the rhetoric coming from state politics all the way to the federal politics level. Just a lot of that blame game and just blaming, people for inflation. Oh, it's all Joe Biden's fault, that sort of thing. But you have a CPA background. So I like to hear from your point of view as a CPA and as a Texan, how do we talk about inflation, what is causing inflation, and what we can do about it, and just, making people feel a lot more rest assured that we are going to come out of this just fine.
Okay, so you touched on it, that the pandemic was a major driving force in it. And there's supply chain issues, and inflation has hit the whole world along with the global supply chain and all of that. So yes, it's a problem. Yes, it's an issue. Yes, it's important to work on that. I think as you look around the world, though, the U.S. is doing better than most countries in bouncing back from that. And the thing that drives me crazy just over the long haul is to hear voters who will say, that their influence, they vote based on the economy, so therefore I'm a Republican. And that makes no logical sense, because the Republicans historically have not done anything helpful or productive on the economy. So, at this point, what I hear them saying is, oh, we have inflation, that's bad, so therefore you should vote for Republicans. But again, it's kind of like, where's the solution? You didn't have a replacement for Obamacare, and you don't have, anything helpful with pro-life. And now you're telling us, elect us because there's inflation, and there's no connection there. And I think the Democrats, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act with absolutely no Republicans voting for it, which tells you a lot. But where we have these major issues, our democracy, our planet, women's right to choose, and you're balancing all those things against, oh, but I'm paying too much money for gas. And it just boggles the mind that could be any kind of a rational choice. I was at lunch this morning with friends, and that topic came up, and I was talking about a Facebook meme that I had seen. It was a Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, a Handmaid's Tale woman holding her little girl's hand, and the little girl said, Mom, what did you do back then when this all happened? And the mother said, well, honey, you have to remember that the price of gas was really high back then. And it's just tragically sad to think that we really might give up our democracy, women's rights, the planet, the whole thing, just because the price of gas is high. And they don't have a plan for that anyway.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and having to, I lived really close to the Mexico border. I lived outside of El Paso in Mexico. And I remember driving to Mexico to go get gas and then driving back home to Las Cruces with gas, because gas was cheaper because inflation, it was so high then. I remember that as a child, and I remember it taking a few years to go down. But I will say that was just so different. We don't see that today. We don't see it to the extent today as it was in the 70s, the inflation. I think we all might be still having like nightmares about it being the same, but it's not.
I remember sitting in long lines, like for a couple of hours or something, to get gas in the 70s. So yeah, that was the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All of those things. But yeah, just explaining it to people, like, we're not having to do that anymore. We're lucky, this is not this 1970s, inflation that we saw. It's different.
Now, the problem is a candidate can't make light of it or suggest in any way that it's not a big deal. Because for a family
Yeah,
that's struggling to make ends meet, it's a big deal.
that's my point.
So,
Yeah,
so
no, it is.
yeah, I just think that it's important for Democratic candidates across the board to admit, acknowledge, recognize that yes, it's a problem. Yes, we're trying to work on it, even though the Republicans that are needing to vote to help us with it aren't willing to do that. The point is just that can't be the tail wagging the dog. We have to work on it, do the best we can on it, but not give up the whole shebang just to get that fixed. The economy
Yeah.
kind of is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down, prices go up and they go down. And you don't jump off, a bridge and slit your wrists because the price of gas went up. It'll come down and the economy will bounce back.
So let's talk now about education and education funding and what you could do about funding education at a federal level and distributing it to the state, Texas, of course. We recently got a bunch of funding for Texas during COVID for educational funding, and some of that funding went to the border, which is a concern. So what could we do? What could you do to ensure that education funding actually goes to education and not funding um, leaders' personal pet projects?
Well, as I recall, at the time when like the American Rescue Plan, I think it was called, was passed, we got lots of money out to the states and out to individual people and all that. I might be remembering wrong, but I seem to recall that Democrats at that point were pushing for there to be all sorts of accountability measures tied to that legislation. And Republicans said, no way. They wanted it to go through without all those safeguards. And it truly was something where it was not an option to delay the process and make it take longer because people needed help. At that point, people were dying in droves and, everything was shut down. We had a disaster on our hands. And so time was of the essence. But Democrats pointed out, this is what we need to be doing. And the fact that that didn't happen with that accountability was on Republicans. So, and now I'm kind of losing my train of, as far as education money, I'm sorry, I got off track there. Yeah, the federal government has less to do with education. I mean, Beto is definitely going to be in there, and Mike Collier and all the rest of them at the state level. I think that the federal government should, the one step that was taken, the forgiving student loan debt, was huge. And I'm definitely glad that happened, would vote in favor of more of that happening. I think everything comes from totally throwing out the idea of anything trickling down and working on things bubbling up, work from the bottom up or the middle out. And that would apply with education dollars and anything else.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, you're right. One of the other things that's on your website is your position on Social Security. So can you tell us a little bit more about your position on Social Security?
Okay. It is a safety net for millions of people. I know people who are collecting Social Security, like myself, are livid hearing it called an entitlement when it's money that's been taken out of our paychecks over our entire working career and set aside for that. So, when Social Security can be protected and expanded and that, I think that's a good thing all the way around. one thing, I don't know whether this was maybe part of what you were looking at on my website. I like to look at taxation policy to make it more level for everybody. And there's a huge bucket of money called capital gains income that's taxed at different rates, much lower, and it doesn't get charged Social Security or Medicare tax. And if it did get charged Social Security tax, I think that would probably solidify and make viable the Social Security fund for lots and lots of time to come. And it also makes me livid to hear people who feel entitled to all of their tax breaks and their loopholes and their everything else to turn around and call entitlements Social Security that people have earned and it's their money. You're on mute.
I keep on doing that. Yeah, I'm trying to get. Okay, so I have my dog. I think I confessed on a few webinars that I have a dog addicted to Trader Joe's peanut butter treats, and she's out of control. So I always put it on mute because I'm telling you, she barks like a gazillion times while I'm in webinars, because she's right here begging me for peanut butter treats. So that's why I put it on mute so much.
Well, you've remembered almost every time. Just a couple of times I see your mouth going, oops, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, I'm on mute. So you also mentioned your taxation plan on your website, and taxation and just the process for collecting taxes, it does need to be updated across the country. It's time for us to think about how we collect taxes differently and make it more equitable. So what would you propose? I mean, what are your positions on taxation? Some of your ideas. I looked at your website, thought it was really interesting, and I just wanted to hear from you.
Well, the main thing that I've talked about that is, I think different than what you'll hear a lot of places is what I call income is income. And it doesn't make a distinction between the money that most of us get in a paycheck and gets immediately reported to the IRS. You get the W-2 that shows how much you made. You have money withheld from it, and there are tax tables that show, for this range of income, you pay at this percent. And then you've got money that's totally separate from that, that's capital gains income, that's largely from buying and selling stocks, which isn't something that most, middle to lower income people do. It's typically higher income people that do a lot of stock trading, make a lot of their money on capital gains, and they have a whole separate set of rules on that income, which start with basically the top rate on that is about half of the top rate on money from a paycheck. So I think it just becomes a case of valuing work equally, at least equally with wealth, rather than saying, wealthy people get all these bonuses and don't have to play by the same rules that people, working stiffs who just work for a paycheck.
How can we support you, Jan? Where can we find you? What are the details for how best to support you? Especially, we're a week away from early voting.
Mm-hmm.
We're, the heat is on. We're definitely in the running here. So what can we do to help you out at this point in your campaign?
My website is just my name, JanMcDowell.com. So you can go to that. You can read all about me and learn more. You can click on the donate button, which is always helpful. You can click on the volunteer page, and that has things as simple as just tell us you want a yard sign and put your address in there, and one will magically appear in your yard. And it goes, for all sorts of, from easy to, super involved. But people can follow my Facebook page, which is Jan McDowell Democrat. If you follow the page, then when you see me post stuff, and we post some good stuff, like it and share it, particularly share, because then it gets out to all the people that you know that I don't know, which increases the reach exponentially. So there's that. We're going to be putting signs out at all polling locations. That comes up this coming Sunday night. Just going into early voting starting on Monday. We'll be hoping to have poll greeters, and a congressional district is large. It's right about 4 times the size of a state house district. So it covers a lot of area, a lot of polling locations, lots of voters, and it's, just kind of a big time, logistical thing. So anything like that you can do, we need people knocking on doors with us, making phone calls, but just easy as can be from your home, share stuff on Facebook would be a super easy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a couple questions, so let's go through those. So Beck Trammell asks, Republicans have been chipping away at Hispanic and blue collar workers. What is your message to them?
I am all about trying to make things as equitable and as opportunistic for everybody as possible. I am a member of the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans, which is a union-related group and endorsed by the AFL-CIO. So I am in it for working people. Part of that, living wage is a huge thing. I think for everybody to have the opportunity to thrive. There's a saying I like that sounds kind of just simplistic, but I think it really is profound, that we all do better when we all do better. And I think if you think that through, it really is the case. Any person that can be lifted up from a situation where they're not making it, number one, they're probably getting income in from government help, and they're not paying into the system. But if they get lifted up, then they don't need that government assistance anymore, and they have a job that allows them to pay into the system. So there's a double benefit to lifting people up. And the more you do that in big numbers, the more the economy and the nation and the world benefit. Because any person who's not thriving or meeting their potential, all of us are losing out on what that person might have contributed if they had been able to realize their potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. So our friend Buddy asked a question. Did you ask Beth Van Dyne to debate you? And if so, what was her response?
Okay, so I did not ask Beth Van Dyne. I was totally, open to the prospect that it would be good to have a debate. What I saw was in July, I think it was July, I got an email that came to both of us from a group called the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce, saying that they were having these forums. I had actually been in a forum during the primary with that same group. And when I saw that, I thought that it sounded like the kind of group that maybe Beth would, feel comfortable and would want to appear in front of. So when they sent this, they suggested 8 different dates of when they could do this. They always meet at lunchtime. And so here's 8 different dates. Tell us, what works. And I responded within, I think, hours of getting their email. And I said, I will make any of these dates work. I'll be there. But I put them in order, which were my favorite. And the biggest thing was my least favorite were ones that were after the start of early voting. Let's try to get it done before people start voting. And then I didn't hear anything more. So after a long time, I emailed the guy back, and he said, well, she said that she wasn't available for any of those 8 days. And so they said to her, we'll suggest some other days. And apparently they never heard anything more back from her. I'd also heard from a group, from a guy at SMU who said he was part of the debate and something or another department at SMU, and he had copied a professor that was a person who runs that, and they were asking about having a debate during the primary, I think. And I said, well, you know what? It was close to time and schedules were busy. I said, what I would suggest is let's do that after the primary. I would love for you to set something up like that with Beth Van Dyne in the fall. And he said, oh, great, okay. And I haven't heard anything back from them, so I don't know whether they reached out to her or not. But I'm ready, whenever, and it hasn't happened.
Mhm. Wow, yeah. She sounds like she's just a coward and doesn't really want to commit. So Angela says Beth Van Dyne never holds town halls or listens to her constituents. Will you have regular town halls when you are in Congress?
I would love to. Yeah, I love meeting with groups of voters, and I think that that's real important part of being a representative is to be there to represent them. I thought of one other thing that's kind of off track, but it's something I think is important for viewers to know about District 24. So can I do that for just a second also?
Absolutely.
In this recent gerrymandering that happened, I think it's very curious the way District 24 got drawn. In the old District 24, about 70% of the city of Irving was in the district. Beth Van Dyne is a former two-term mayor of Irving. So you think, okay, well, she's got a huge home team advantage having her town, the big chunk like that in the district. But when she won her seat in 2020, she lost every single precinct in Irving, which tells me that the people who knew her the best didn't want anything to do with her. So when they redrew the district, they kept the precinct that she lives in Irving. It's still in District 24, that all the rest of that 70% of the city got taken out and put into other congressional districts. So I just think that speaks volumes about what they're trying to do to shore it up, and they've made it a district that voted pretty heavily in favor of Trump in 2020, where the original District 24 voted for Biden. So we're doing all we can.
Yes. And she definitely seems to be definitely a Trumplican, and she definitely seems to be an insurrectionist for sure. So meanwhile, here you are trying to save democracy and stand up to the insurrection. So we really appreciate what you're doing. Jan, cannot say thank you enough for what you're doing.
I appreciate MAGA. I've always said to people that was just a spark of marketing genius when you came up with that. So that's awesome. And I should have had this to hold up and show. When CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, met in Dallas a couple months ago, that was all the crazies from all around the country, Beth's friends coming to her home turf. And what she posted on her Twitter at that point was a picture of her with Lauren Boebert and 3 other Republican crazies, all posed with their AR-15 spread out. And the caption on her tweet said, "This is how we welcome friends to District 24." And I mean, I found that personally insulting. So that's the kind of person I'm running against.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty disgusting and pretty tone deaf to the fact that we lost so many lives in Uvalde and lost so many lives in Santa Fe and El Paso and Sutherland Springs. I mean, it's just tone deaf. And that's what we need to change about politics. Yeah, politics needs to quit being tone deaf like that. That's not okay anymore. These are different times.
Agreed.
So I cannot thank you enough for running. Again, you can find Jan McDowell at janmcdowell.com, and please Follow her on all the social medias. If you guys, we are in our last week before early voting starts. And so in the next few days, like starting Thursday and Friday, we need everybody out there knocking on doors. We need everybody participating in texting campaigns. It is all hands on deck, and it's an emergency. Okay. It's an emergency because democracy is on the line. It's absolutely an emergency. So whatever you all could do to help out Jan, to help out. Oh, thank you. Patrick said he was block walking earlier. Thank you,
Yay.
Patrick. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so important just to go out there and just try. I know I feel kind of bad because I keep on thinking I'm gonna have time to go block walking, and I don't. I've actually been here like crunching stuff and doing video and doing graphics and doing.
You are doing good work where whatever you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all of you out there who are just doing the best job you can right now during this election so we can turn the tide and we can just take democracy back. It's never been more important than now. So thank you so much, Jan, for your time tonight. And I look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail. And I'm looking forward for a celebration. And so that's what I'm wishing for you. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah. Have a great evening. And it was wonderful to talking to all of you. And yes, you're welcome, Mary. Mary just said, thank you, Magda, for hosting Dan. Yes, thank you. No problem. I'm so glad that, we were able to meet with Jan tonight because, of course, I've heard so much about Jan from my friends up there in South Lake, like Buddy and Scott Ewell and all the folks up there. So thank you so much. We definitely need a great replacement for for Beth Van Dyne. So I'm hoping that we're able to take you all the way to the finish line.